son? Where'd you find this?
Buckle up, buttercups. It's time to get down to business. Oh, yeah. It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Totally legit.
It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. We're back here. It's me, James, and I'm joined here once again by my good friend, Ben Holmes. Benny, welcome back to the show.
It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
I need to thank you again for coming back on the show because I don't know if you know this or not, but your episode that we did about the Temple of Set is the highest viewed podcast episode. Yeah. So another round of one. I think one of the clips from that episode is also now the highest rated clip. So, oh my God! You didn't even try.
That feels accurate.
Yeah, it's suiting. Anything because it's only 50 views. I think the clip has maybe a couple thousand, 1,200 maybe. I don't know. I have to.
Well, I did make one of those bots to sort of spam it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, it really helps because the views are hard to come by these days. But and downloads on Buzzsprout, I think, to your episode is the highest rated one. But I was just thinking about this when you suggested this topic for the show today. Since when are you into this shit?
Oh my God, I've been reading about these like alien stories for a long time now. Like that is my chief use of Wikipedia. And it's something where I grew up with like Fox, Alien Autopsy. Sorry, there's a cat right here. Cat. Like the Alien Autopsy, X-Files.
X-Files for sure.
All those stuff. And I remember it scared the hell out of me. Like aliens are definitely like a top fear of mine. And so I've always been kind of like fascinated and freaked out by these stories. And I love reading about the stuff. And I really don't know what to believe or what to think about anything beyond, the phenomena that happens. A lot of it, which, seems pretty legitimate. And a lot of it that's probably, some assumptions or, implanted
misinterpretations, even
memories and stuff like that. Anyway, it's just really cool to fall down Wikipedia rabbit holes reading about this stuff.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah.
You're literally preaching to the choir there.
Yeah.
But it's just so funny because I do remember like way back in the day when we were very young. Because I probably started getting into this shit. I mean, really immediately with the internet. I don't think it was. I don't think it was. I can't even remember because it was so long ago. But by 10 or 12, I was already getting the same kind of thing, like scared by these stories. I remember on LimeWire probably downloading that alien interrogation.
Yes.
This is D&I at the bottom. That was like one of the old school.
I remember
lore.
that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And there's like another couple alien autopsy videos, but a lot of them look super fake. Honestly, the D&I one, that one looked really good. It's like not overstated. It's just as cut and dry as like an interrogation of an alien would be. But yeah, you always have to, like, with any of these stories, any of the things that we've read about, any rabbit hole we've gone down, you always have to be able to immediately flip that coin and say, well, this could all be bullshit.
Yeah.
Like none of this shit could be real, or maybe the context with which I'm interpreting it is completely incorrect, and I'm missing a part of the story, so I don't understand the context of what this shit means. But I don't know. I think the general interest in it has now reached fucking fever pitch as much as it could be. People are more willing and open to talk about this shit, and I gotta tell you, I'm fucking happy because it was really hard trying to explain this shit to people like 15 years ago. No one wanted to hear it.
Right.
Not
Exactly.
in Nebraska, not in Tennessee. They just didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
But, heavy documentation. Speaking of heavy documentation, let's jump into this first thing. So the 1976 Tehran UFO incident is something that I had heard. I'd probably seen like a History Channel, Ancient Aliens episode or something on it.
1976 is not ancient for everybody, but
right. Yeah. It's that show is great. It's great entertainment. Come on, it's great entertainment. Again, this could all be bullshit. Honestly, Ancient Aliens was the show where I was like, this might all be bullshit.
Yeah, right.
This show is making me think all of this is bullshit. But anyways, this one I'm not super familiar with, but this is interesting because didn't they also recently, in like the past 5 years, have another similar incident?
I hadn't heard about that.
I thought I was reading that somewhere. Anyways, go on. Let's talk about this. I've got the Wikipedia page pulled up if you want to share that.
What I remember about it was effectively that, like, they clocked these things on radar, scrambled some fighter jets, which went and like saw this huge object, which sent out another object. And I feel like there may have been something where one of them got detected a radar lock or something like that. Mm. And it was basically flying around a power plant, a nuclear power plant. And it all sort of fizzled out. I can't remember like what happened, that they just were kind of like, oh, okay, we'll back off. Or I can't remember how it de-escalated, which seems kind of crazy.
Oh, it says right here. They said, oh, okay.
Yeah, right. Okay. We'll come back and check on this later. Yeah. But I know like one of the guys who actually may have been flying the jet or something became like general of the Air Force and was always trying to go back like to bring this stuff up. And I think what's interesting about it is, besides the fact that it seems like there's all this, there's this evidence and sort of like pretty clear that they saw something, but also just the fact that it's looking at a nuclear power plant and it's Iran. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to jump to any more conclusions, so I'll let you do that part because you're
no. Listen. What are you trying to say here? What are you trying to say here?
Well, it's like, I think ages ago, back when, 20 years ago, when we were sitting in a living room talking about Bob Lazar at Area 51, it's like, it could just be all experimental aircraft.
No, dude, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
And so like something like that, where it's like Iran and a nuclear power plant, and it all kind of like gets swept aside. It does just make you wonder if it's
but I guess
more terrestrial, I guess.
Well, look, and that's also something that is now, that portion of the conversation also has entered the lexicon. Like it can openly be said, yes, these could all be terrestrial craft. This could be a major ploy. We're really easily fooled as people, especially by flashing lights and fancy shit we've never seen. So it absolutely could. What is interesting about this is I wasn't familiar at all with the interacting with the nuclear plant, but that has happened all over the United States too. There's been like major incidences apparently at some point in the 80s, a bunch of people came out around the same time in the 70s. There were military bases, nuclear silos all around the country, all around the world even. Some where they even captured video of this thing, like object just coming in, dismantling the warhead, or like not dismantling it, but decommissioning it, like making it unfireable and just piecing out. And the thread behind that, and again, that could be Russia.
Yeah.
If we have this technology, we can't necessarily rule out that other people don't have this technology. And if that's the war they're fighting, then that's the war they're going to start fighting.
Yeah.
It won't necessarily need to be a bloody battle. You just go around as stealthy as possible in your super spacecraft and dismantle their arsenal.
Uh-huh.
So I'm 100% with you there. It could actually be shit that we have, very advanced exotic technology that we have been able to understand for a while, and we're using it in, the most experimental ways possible.
Right. Because exactly, and that's also kind of like, that's kind of what you would do with that.
Yeah.
If you think about it, like if you
why
had that
have
technology,
it? Yeah, why have it and not use
you
it?
wouldn't. You would almost want to keep other powers guessing. Like you wouldn't want to reveal it. If you had something that was way better, like if you suddenly had a much better aircraft, you would want to keep it secret, but also kind of use it to intimidate your enemies. And so there's that other element of even like the recent congressional hearings where like, and I'm sure people have talked about this before, but how much of this is almost like counterintelligence? Is this just like
straight out of
some
the playbook?
weird
It's straight
back
out of the playbook.
office of the CIA, just like, let's keep running this alien story and see what happens. Just
even at the congressional hearings, the people that knew legit information, had the clearances and had access to the information, they had to clear everything they said at that congressional meeting.
Yeah,
Somebody
exactly.
approved it. Somebody approved
Right.
what was, how that information was disclosed.
Right.
It absolutely could be 100%. This is like a great tie in. So I got down the rabbit hole of Area 51 and I stripped away all the nonsense and I said to myself, okay, this is obviously a real place. What do they do here?
Right.
And as years have gone by, its existence was acknowledged, and they were allowed to talk about some of the shit. They developed space planes, very advanced aeronautic shit. There's a guy, I talk about him a lot. His name's Trevor Paglin. He made this book that's the patches that are associated with classified and declassified aeronautics programs, satellites, planes, from all these different
like
projects. The military makes a patch for every project.
See, I love how it's like still like the Boy Scouts.
We were talking about it before. It's so cheesy, dude.
Yeah.
They make a patch for everything. And like, if you know how to interpret the symbols on that patch, you can learn a lot of information about what kind of program that was. And that's not a mystic science. You can look up what the things mean and learn to interpret the image that you're seeing and kind of like extrapolate what this project was, what its purpose was, and where it was centered. I wanted the real. What's the real?
Yeah.
Area 51 is real. Do they have UFOs? I don't fucking know. But that place is real. There's pictures of it. It is a thing. You can't go there. If I try and go there, they'll shoot me. Like that's a place. All right. What do? They make planes. I can't pull up the list of planes that have been made there, but it's all sorts of shit. It's a big industry. That is real. Yeah. Area 51 is just one of many testing facilities we have. Another one we have is called the Dugway Proving Ground. The Dugway Proving Ground, I'm pretty sure this one is what do they call it? Area 52. Yeah, this has got to be it.
I mean, yeah. Are you saying that, like, is Area 51 still used for that stuff, or do you think it's kind of a red herring now?
Dude, it's shit still goes on there, but it's not. They declassified it.
Right.
They
like,
talk about it.
They talk like the SR-71, I think, had.
Yep, that would be one.
Was
Probably
there.
U-2 spy plane,
Yeah,
probably
definitely.
the Nighthawk, maybe the F-117, the Nighthawk. Sure. There's another sick plane that I think they worked on there called the Bird of Prey. It's just they developed stealth technology there, stealth plane technology, and satellites, and now stealth drones, and all sorts of advanced applications of planes. That is real. That is what they do there. It has been proven that at least they do that.
Yeah.
The whole Bob Lazar thing, again, like, who knows to what scale that actually is, but it's for sure that. And I got really focused on that. And I got really focused on understanding what these companies were: Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, EG&G, like big, huge military defense contractors. And I realized the military spends a lot of money. And a lot of these companies get the contracts to do the things with this money. And they're major fucking things. And they're definitely doing something with all those billions and trillions of dollars. They're doing shit. And that's why I am super willing to entertain the idea that absolutely it's technology that we have and we're using it. And what better cover than a goofy fucking alien story? And you say everyone that talks about it is a crazy, kooky conspiracy theorist, and it discredits the whole thing. There was that guy, I don't know if you've come across this guy at all, Richard Doty. There's that documentary called Mirage Men. That's what his job was. His job was psychological operations against the UFO community. And this is genius. So, again, we have to assume that everything he's saying could be bullshit. Okay. Because this is his job.
Oh, right.
Psychological operations. This is what he does, and they're very well trained. They understand how to make people think whatever the fuck they want. They've been doing it for a long time. So he said in the 80s and 90s, when the UFO Bob Lazar comes out, the UFO conversation started to like really bubble up in a way that it had never been on the public's tongue. And this guy, Richard Doty, again, works for the military, would meet with people in the alien UFO community. And they would do like conventions. It was like a thing. It was like a crowd of people, right? Mm-hmm. And he would give them real unidentified flying object videos, and he would give them fake ones. But he would tell them, I'm like, you know, disclosing these to you, like whistleblower shit. These are all real. And what that would do is some of them would be real, but then one of them or two of them would be fake. And all he would have to say is, well, that the only thing that needs to come out is that one of them was faked, and then it discredits all of them. And again, like, how do you stop the conversation if you're constantly debunking? If you're giving them the shit and then constantly debunking the shit that you're giving them, you can just constantly make people look like fucking kooks and nut jobs and conspiracy theorists talking about little green men and shit. Now, like the biological portion, like all the people who've said they've seen some kind of biological entity, that can also get weird, because I've definitely read rabbit holes where it's like we have very advanced animatronics. It's just a robot.
Huh.
It's just a robot.
Really?
The ships are drones. You don't need a human to fly it. A human cannot sit in that machine.
Yeah.
Based on our understanding of physics, a human could not sit in that machine.
Because they have their organs would
they would get obliterated.
Yeah.
So again, at least based on our current understanding of physics. Maybe they found a way around that, but I've also heard the argument, and again, it's not saying it's true. It's just saying, oh, well, all right, well, we have drone planes, we have drone technology. Why not build some animatronics? Have you been to Disney World? Like that's an old fight. Chuck E. Cheese, like we've been doing that for a while too.
It's got like a banjo.
You know what I mean?
Like happy birthday or something.
That's fucking hilarious. But there's some of this shit is real. So when I went through the phase of like I only want to focus on the real shit.
Yeah.
What I would look for is real shit. And the one topic where I seem to get the most real shit is bases underground.
Okay. Yeah.
Or just like really large scale mega operations, like boring out a mountain and putting an entire military base in it with a blast door that can take a direct nuclear blast. That's Cheyenne Mountain. That's openly talked about. They brag about it. It can, sustain hundreds of people. They bore it out of a mountain. So they're doing shit. Mm-hmm. They're doing serious fucking shit. Right. They've got a lot of money and they're spending some time doing it.
Wait, is this like the Dugway place you were talking about?
Yeah, here, I'll pull this up. Dugway, and the reason I want to talk about Dugway is interesting. Dugway Proving Ground.
Sorry, I just want to go back and look at your favorites there. Really.
No, sure, there's so much dumb. There's so many dumb, stupid fucking. Here we go. I want to open this. I just opened up their website, but it's, propaganda as you'd expect. What are they? I just want to make sure because I know they call Area 52. I don't know if they call it if that's the nickname for the Dugway Proving Ground or if it's this other. No, I guess it's Utah because Dugway's in Utah. So this is, let me see if they say it here. No, this is not it. Dugway is fucked because it is a biological and chemical weapons facility, and there is some UFO shit here. They even have it on the page right here. Yeah. Following the public attention drawn to Area 51 in the early 90s, ufologists and concerned citizens have suggested that whatever covert operations may have been underway at that location, if any, were subsequently transferred to DPG. Right, so this is they do call this Area 52.
Okay.
The thing that I don't think we're gonna see on here or anywhere really is oh no, maybe it's Tonopah. Or no, that's Area 51. My bad. It might be Dugway. I can't remember. But either way, Dugway is interesting because it's a military base, but each of the major military contractors have like their own kind of quadrant.
Yeah.
And they're huge, like the massive fucking hangar spaces. Yeah. And this is all above ground, right? So there's no telling what might be beneath it.
Right.
Just when you look at what was built above ground, it's a major operation. It could be way fucking bigger. Dugway. Oh, look, Ian Brown. Quantum entanglement in Alaska. Yeah, that's exactly what we're at. Perfect. They have these big hangars there, and they can kind of do whatever they want. But it's a military base, but it's not because like all these defense contractors, like the thing that I've seen where people have tried to go there, they're not met by military personnel. Yeah. They're met by like private security. It's a completely different, It's like corporate military. It's crazy. Raytheon, Lockheed, Northrop. Hang on one second. This is the book.
Wow.
I can tell you.
That's a cool book.
But then you'd have to be destroyed by me. It's one of my favorite tabletops. And it's just pictures of patches that are associated with classified or declassified projects. Of course
you have that.
Dude, look at this one. Look at this one.
Oh, come on.
It's I think that in Latin is to serve man. Or no, maybe
classified. To serve man, yeah.
To serve man. Oh, that's the Twilight Zone episode, right? Yeah. Dude, that's a real patch. Military made that.
Crazy.
So that's what I'm saying. That's real.
Yeah.
I can completely entertain the idea that this is all some shit that we have, and what better cover is the kooky conspiracy nuts talking about aliens to make the general public not buy into it.
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate to my own thing about the sort of that one explanation, just that there are obviously other UFO stuff. I'm going to keep using UFO instead of whatever they call it now.
Yeah, we're keeping it old school. UAP. UAP is what they call it now.
Yeah. But there's there's crazy stories out there that really... There's no telling what was going on exactly, but people obviously saw something, and it could be completely different phenomena than some of this other stuff. But it is just so fascinating that there's something that defies explanation, like any sort of simple, straightforward explanation in these ways, and is so rare in the particular way that it is. It just kind of fascinated me and, gives me goosebumps. And I don't really have any other logical explanation for why I'm interested in it.
It's a good story.
Well, it's
good story.
It's a good story. And it's like the Rendlesham Forest incident.
Dude. That's another really good story.
It's a really good story, and there's no good, sort of military explanation of it. I think there may have been an air base up there, but it's just, it's like a guy driving by, saw something obviously very strange. Seems pretty legitimate that he saw this. I think there was even maybe some physical evidence.
Didn't he take notes too?
Yeah.
He was drawing what he saw on the crap.
Yeah. And the police investigated, and there's some, weird stuff with that. But there's no obvious explanation that it would be any sort of experimental aircraft. And definitely, not Venus or weather balloon or anything like that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like acorn-shaped craft. Which obviously didn't really know what an acorn looked like.
Not at all. Yeah, it's not what an acorn looks like. Asshole.
But there's stuff like that. There's other stories like that out there, which, it really slipped between those cracks. And I feel like on the one hand, they're not all related. They're not all the same. But there's got to be something out there that we're missing something with it.
Yes, Benny, we are.
Yeah.
We're missing something because there's literally an entire world that this goes on. This is what I was trying to explain before about that military corporation vibe.
Yeah. Okay.
The real industry here is that. All the shit going on the surface, all the stuff you and I do means nothing. It's worthless. It doesn't mean anything. It's
I knew that.
It's only to fuel this world that's operating underneath us. And if we're entertaining any of these ideas seriously, we're entertaining the idea that our government has discovered limitless, mind-bending energy, and they're deliberately hiding it from us. Like think about that. We've
you
developed
gotta
craft.
follow up on this.
What's that?
You got to follow up. What do you mean by that?
Well, if
Iron Man,
or beyond that, like if we're assuming they've made these craft that can do this crazy shit, dude, they're breaking the rules of physics. They had to have figured out something new, and if they figured out something new that could be that beneficial to life on this planet, and they keep it from us, we're paying for it. We're paying for this, dude.
Yeah.
And all of this that's why when I look at our layer of reality, it's a joke. It's a joke. The real shit, the real money gets spent in that world. And we don't know about it. We're not allowed to know about it. We'll never know about it.
Yeah.
Like we will never know the true scope of any of this shit. But I will agree with you that I don't think it's just one thing.
Right.
And if again, like we said before, if we open up the possibility that we have this, then we have to at least entertain the possibility that we're not the only ones. We're also maybe not. If we're now able to traverse the universe, we have to assume that maybe other things have made contact with us.
Yeah.
If we now know how to travel out there, you think we're not going to travel out there? No, of course. One of the guys that came forward on the Stephen Creer press conference recently said he was out in Alaska and he saw a bunch of crazy shit. But the craziest thing that he proposed was that out in Alaska, or in Antarctica, excuse me, he was out at the base in Antarctica. He learned that we have a space program that's like space fleet level. We have fleets of spaceships.
Okay.
But that's just something this guy said he heard. Like battleship destroyers in the water, but the equivalent for space.
Huh. For what purpose would that be?
There's a whole world going on that we don't know about, and they're pumping billions of dollars into it. Like, this is what I'm saying. Just the shit that I looked up that's real.
Yeah.
It outdoes this layer that we occupy in so many different ways. You know why we don't have better schools? I'll tell you why. Because they're building really advanced facilities that we're not allowed in. You want to know why our roads suck? Yeah, because they're using all the good asphalt. They're using it in the fucking in the bunkers that we're not allowed in.
Roads, okay?
That's they're building space roads.
Yeah, you know why your pothole won't be fixed? Because they're fixing it in space.
We got to prioritize here. The plebes on the surface can fucking starve. We don't give a fuck.
I'm naturally just skeptical of a lot of that, but at the same time, like we were talking before we started, when you do look at even the stuff that is completely out there, when you look at some of the stuff that like the CIA and high-level government have done, it is remarkably childish.
And again, like this is why I went through that period where I wanted to know the real shit.
Right.
Because I wanted to know the real shit. And what's funny is the more real shit I learned, the more I found it difficult to convince people that it was real.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I first learned about MK Ultra, and I was like, the CIA was just dosing people all throughout the 60s and 70s? And they're like, no, that's not real.
Yeah.
And I'd have to be like, no, it really was real. There was really, congressional hearings about it. It's a real thing. No, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's fucking hilarious. All I mean to say is this shit is far bigger in scale than anyone is willing to like realistically entertain. Think about it.
Okay.
Trillions of dollars. There's billions of dollars our government doesn't account for every year.
Right.
They spend it somewhere. And when you look at all the known petty shit, the FBI, CIA, NSA, the executive, judicial, legislative, when you look at all the petty shit that they have done and still do, none of this shit is too far out of reach. If they had that shit, of course they wouldn't give it to us. If they had a fucking way to make us actually enjoy our lives and everyone on this planet have enough food to eat, they don't want that though. They want less people eating food and breathing air. They want less people doing that. But okay, so you said you find it hard to believe. Well, Benny, you're in luck.
Okay.
Because I took notes on quite possibly my most favorite story of alien lore, and it's the story of Phil Schneider. Now I'll try and be as abridged as I can about this.
No,
but just for your context, this is the story that it stems from. It's called the D.U.M.B.s Incident.
Okay.
Okay, and this in conspiracy lore is pretty legendary. Phil Schneider was a guy who just like kind of plops onto the scene, the alien conspiracy scene in the 90s. And he gives a couple really good lecture tours. A lot of it is videotaped, but he dies of very mysterious circumstances a little while later.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about his story is, just like in some of my other favorite cases, no one has really offered a good explanation to debunk it. And this story has been around for a long time. And even as I have known about it, some of the shit that he was talking about eventually becomes known information, and it confirmed what he was saying in the early 90s. But I can't remember if this is in my notes, but just for context here. The Dulce base is the subject of a conspiracy theory claiming that a jointly operated human and alien underground facility exists under Archuleta Mesa on the Colorado-New Mexico border near the town of Dulce, New Mexico in the United States. Claims of alien activity there first arose from Albuquerque businessman Paul Benowitz. Oh my God. There was another good point I wanted to make too about this. I'll just, God, it was such a good point. It was such a good point.
I'll come back. Oh, are you talking about Hillary Swank's husband, Phil Schneider?
Yeah, Phil Schneider, Hillary Swank's husband. Yeah, I don't remember this guy at all. The Dulce War.
Wow.
Yeah, but that's like, it's a legendary story. That's where this is kind of like coming from. And fucking this guy, Phil Schneider, says he's here. So I'm going to look up Phil Schneider here real quick.
Yeah, we can get this out, man.
Huh?
Yeah, we can just, find your notes.
I've got him pulled up over here. This is Phil Schneider, this guy right here.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. We'll go to YouTube. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Son of a bitch. This is one of his lectures. Well, I'll just hit the notes. I took good notes. So basically, Phil Schneider stands for a couple things. He wanted to expose extravagant military spending and secrecy, including D.U.M.s and the black budget.
Okay.
He wanted to redeem the honor of friends who died under mysterious circumstances after being a part of these projects. He wanted to empower the public with the knowledge in hopes they would use it as fuel to advance disclosure. And he wanted to vindicate friends whose deaths had been ruled suicides, but Phil believed them to be murder.
Wow.
He spent 17 years in black budget programs specializing in the creation of deep underground military bases as a geologist, structural engineer for aerospace applications, and was a self-taught metallurgist. This is real. He has fucking the proof to back that portion of it up. He had that bona fides. He had those certifications to be doing that kind of work. Most famously known for his claims that he was involved in the construction of an underground facility for Los Alamos National Labs in Dulce, New Mexico, near the southwest portion of the Archuleta Mesa. It was also here that he claims he and others engaged in a battle with tall gray aliens they encountered during the construction of the facility. So the first thing when I got to the story, the first thing I thought was bullshit. We're building fucking bunkers underground. What is this? Bullshit. Then I learned about Cheyenne Mountain facility. Then I learned about the underground military, it was basically continuity of government. So it wasn't strictly military, but they built it under a hotel. It was a nuclear bunker they built under an active hotel. Nobody knew it was there until they declassified it in, the 2010s, maybe 2000s. I also watched this great movie. It was an Army Corps of Engineers video where they're in the 60s building a nuclear-powered bunker in a glacier. Okay? This is real. We can do this shit. In fact, we'll get into this later, a couple of the Nazis that we took in Operation Paperclip were the structural engineers who pioneered the bunker campaign that the Nazis went on, building bunkers, some of which we still have yet to discover, all over the world. Real shit, not fake, absolutely real, confirmed by history, real.
Okay, so we know there's military bases underground. And we know this guy was probably involved with that.
And we know that massive underground facilities like this can be constructed.
Yeah.
There is evidence to suggest we have done it in the past, like Cheyenne Mountain, the FEMA underground FEMA facility, Site R, I think is what they call it, Ravenclaw. There's a ton of these things, and those are all the ones that are disclosed. Like, if some shit goes down, to continue the government, we move them here. It's a part of the plan, openly talked about. But they ain't the only ones we got. Anyways, so D.U.M.s. D.U.M.b is an underground military facility capable of housing hundreds of people, storing large equipment, hazardous materials, or advanced technology in laboratories. They're most commonly used to keep research and certain property secret, one of the most highly secure methods to concealment, obviously, often built with multiple levels for compartmentalization, and most commonly built inside of and contained under rock formations, mountains, mesas, hills, and plateaus. During the course of this alleged firefight in Dulce, he sustained major injuries to his hand and chest, of which he readily displayed from what he claimed was a blue light energy weapon akin to being electrocuted. He was actually missing a couple of his fingers, and he has like this crazy scar. Now, anyone who does large-scale construction projects, that could have been a construction accident just as easily, but he does have like some hardcore health issues from these injuries that it was on full display. Very clear on his patriotism, he frequently cited it as his reason for disclosing. To him, the great crime of hiding this knowledge and tech from the public was comparable to treason. So that was really his motivator. In like a true patriotic sense, he's like, this is technology that we should have, the people should have access to. We should not be squirreling this away and keeping it completely secret. Dulce Base. In conspiracy lore, there has always been an interest in Dulce, New Mexico, but recently, and because of Phil Schneider's story, it has become widely accepted that not only is this an ancient alien sighting hotspot, but the aliens had been occupying the interior of the mesa for at least 500 years. It sits on an Apache reservation, which confirms and reiterates the local lore of the mesa being an alien UFO hotspot. So by that I mean the Apache Indians, who have been there forever, have always said there's something supernatural about this place. There are known beings of light, crafts, like, goes back a long time. This has got a real long history. Aside from this story that Phil Schneider's talking about.
Okay.
Right before Phil Schneider's mysterious death, he began making the lecture circuit, telling his story, and many of those videotape lectures are all that remain of his claims, most of which took place at various times during 1995. There's another side note here, but I'll come back to it. Remind me to tell you about Valiant Thor.
Valiant Thor?
Valiant Thor. Oh, okay. Phil was also very vocal about a number of his friends who had been murdered by suicide. Phil claimed 22 of his friends met this fate, 8 of which were ruled as suicides under suspicious circumstances. In fact, the reason he began giving lectures was due to a close friend's suicide. Ron Rummel, former Air Force officer and Silver Star recipient, was found dead in a park in Portland on August 6, 1993. And although the gun was found nearby, there was no investigation and it was ruled a suicide. Ron Rummel and Phil Schneider had been publishing a magazine called the Alien Digest, and the pair also frequently videotaped UAPs near supposed D.U.M.s, just like how Bob Lazar was filming test flights from Area 51 and S4 testing grounds. Phil Schneider was also very vocal about the attempts on his life. He mentions it in just about every single lecture. He said there were many. Anyways, his death. On January 17, 1996, Phil was found dead in his apartment. His cause of death was initially documented as unknown, but upon his body's arrival at the funeral home, it was discovered that he had been strangled with his own catheter hose. And you can look up the pictures. He wasn't strangled. It was like tied around his neck. And his hands were tied up. It's strange. In Phil's apartment, they found 7 medications, and an autopsy ruled his death a suicide. However, none of the medications are found in his stomach, and blood and urine analysis are put on a 3-month hold, only to be reported as lost when his ex-wife calls after the hold time passes. In the Oregonian newspaper, a statement is given about Phil's death, citing it as a stroke. None of Phil's family or friends submitted that obituary.
Wow.
Okay. Where is this?
Pretty creepy, James.
It's pretty creepy. It gets real strange here. We're almost to the juicy. Murder by suicide is not a new concept, nor was it at the time. The tactic of killing people and making it look like suicide had been SOP for intelligence agencies dating back as far as the beginning of their existence. A notable case would be of Frank Olson, a CIA scientist who was given LSD to see if he would adhere to his secrecy oaths. Then when his superiors determined he wasn't reliable, they threw him out of the 10th floor window from the Pennsylvania Hotel, located directly across the street from Madison Square Garden, if you didn't know that. The CIA claimed it was a suicide. Only later was it discovered that not only was he murdered, but the CIA even had a manual for making a death look like a suicide, one of the options of which was throwing someone out of a window. The revelations of this occurred from the leak of the family jewels, which was a dossier of classified CIA documentation, linking them to dozens of illegal activities, including assassinations. Real shit. This is not shit that was made up. This is actually, there were congressional hearings about this shit. Like this, there's a ton of history. And in one generation, we've been made completely ignorant to it. All this shit, I had to read on my own. I didn't learn any of this shit in school, dude.
I had to buy a book about patches.
Yeah, it was so brutal. I hate reading. The lore of the D.U.M.b.s goes way back beyond Phil's claims, and the area has even had a massive cattle mutilation issue, dating back to the 70s, where cows would be found cut up with surgical precision, having their sensitive organs removed, and being completely devoid of blood. It is for this reason it's worth noting that Phil could have easily just heard those stories and concocted a story of his own. But the cattle mutilations, that's a whole, I don't know if you've dug down that at all. That's deep. D.U.M.b.s is all over that. Phil grew up in a Naval Armed Forces family, as his father, Oscar Schneider, worked for the U.S. Navy and was deployed all over the world with Phil in tow. This is where it gets weird. Phil's father, Oscar, was a Nazi U-boat captain in Hitler's Navy, who was captured by the French during the war and turned over to the U.S. Third Army and then to the Navy. Oscar was a master machinist and MD as a part of the aerospace medicine group of the U.S. Navy. The aerospace and subnautic research kind of go hand in hand. There's a lot of similarities between like pressurizing and acclimating your body to the different pressures and the technology required to keep humans in a safe airtight space. But anyways, I'll continue on. He was instrumental in building the USS Nautilus and the USS Enterprise, the first nuclear submarine and carrier from the U.S. again, and was also involved in many other black projects. He was also famously involved in the nuclear tests at Bikini Atoll, from which he had aerial photographs of UAPs in the sky above the detonation site. That was a thing that Phil Schneider would reveal at these lectures, was the files that he got from his dad, like his dad's personal files, and they're UFOs at the Bikini Atoll. It was a famous nuclear test. We destroyed this whole area. Anyways, Phil began his speaking tour shortly after the death of his father in 1994, and to prove his claims, traveled with and displayed many pieces of evidence from his father's records, proving their validity. In particular, there were 4 documents taken from Oscar's records from the 50s, where Oscar is seen corresponding with numerous other top officials on the Philadelphia experiment, and some believe are the smoking gun proof that the experiment actually took place. The letters go on to detail an autopsy of some of the subjects of the experiments, how survivors should undergo psychological testing, and one written to Edward Condon, who is a notable UFO debunker, in which Oscar informs him that a few patients from the experiment had escaped his custody and the incident needed to be classified 1A prime directive. In the last letter, there's even a reference of Tesla's spatial analyzer, which was a device that was credited to Tesla and always thought to be a component of the Philadelphia experiment. Funny note about Tesla, when he died, he was living in the New Yorker Hotel, which is right across the street from the hotel that they threw that guy out of. And when he died, he had a bunch of trunks there. And Donald Trump's uncle worked for the FBI or the Department of Energy or something, and he assumed responsibility for all of Tesla's belongings the day that he died.
Who? Donald Trump's uncle? Is that what you said?
John Trump. Donald Trump. Okay. Anyways, I'll keep rolling here. We're almost to the kind of almost to the end here, but Phil's ex-wife Cynthia still has a lot of his work and documentation, including Social Security records under an incorrect Social Security number, which his ex-wife believed to be SOP and Black Ops, to hide individuals' involvements. However, under that Social Security number, it can be proved that Phil worked for the Office of Naval Intelligence and Morrison Knudsen. Morrison Knudsen is a huge contractor, big time, like rebuilding cities. Halliburton. Wow. Morrison Knudsen is major as a contractor on a number of projects domestically and overseas, all of which were classified. That's provable, verified. He did those things. By the early 80s, he was applying for Social Security. At some point, he had sustained injuries that completely impeded his ability to work and affected his memory. Shortly after they met, Cynthia gets him into better medical care, removing him from the previous medications he had been on from the VA or some the government attachment association, and his health rebounded, and so did his memory. In fact, one medication that he was taking to prevent seizures actually turned out to be the cause of his seizures. Oh. That was after he got injured, the military gave him medicine, and it was slowly driving him crazy and killing him. Anyways, his ex-wife helps him get better, and then he starts to become a little more lucid and remember this shit. It's also worth noting that on his high school report card is documented that his IQ at the time was 163, and before his medical issues suspended him from work, he could speak 11 languages. Wow. Smart dude. The idea that there are alien bases underground isn't too crazy, especially when considering the myths or lore of humans, human cultures dating back thousands of years. Many different interpretations of the inside Earth existed. However, none proved their existence, merely that Phil wasn't the first to think up that idea. Yeah. Notably, the Tibetan tradition that states quite explicitly about beings living underground of different races and not from this planet or other worlds. The one interesting thread tying these ideas together is the similarities and connections between the Nazis and the Tibetan Hollow Earth theory. In particular, the Thule Society, a predecessor occult society from which the Nazis drew a lot of their own ideology and mythical Aryan origin from, including the Tibetan Hollow Earth theory, of which the Thule Society subscribed to. I don't know if you know anything about the Thule Society, but that's another very strange subtopic of the Nazis. It's that and the Vril Society. Anyways, the Nazis were prolific underground tunnelers. In fact, we still occasionally find Nazi bunkers all over the world, including South America and Europe. They had an organization called the Todt Organization, named after Fritz Todt, a German civil engineer and the father of the Autobahn system. During World War II, Hitler asked Todt to lend his expertise to the Nazi military, which he did. However, he died in a plane crash in 1942. One of his deputies, Xaver Dorsch, assumed control after his death, and he is one of the specific names mentioned in the existing project Operation Paperclip paperwork. We took that guy. We took the guy who was in charge of major infrastructure projects for the Nazis. Do you think we didn't put him to use?
Yeah.
To work on the U.S.'s underground construction program. At that time, it would be safe to assume that Xaver Dorsch was the global authority on underground base construction.
Wow.
No argument there. Since at least the 1950s, civil engineering has been capable of sinking a major shaft 1 to 2 miles down, then span out from the bottom to act as an anchoring for tall complexes or to mine. Large boring drills, like huge versions of oil bores, grind and remove material from the shaft. Though Phil claimed that the work he was a part of was done with sophisticated lasers that melted the rock, creating a flow of magma out in a channel below the laser and leaving the walls with a shiny finished appearance. There's also a device called a subterranean, which is a nuclear-powered boring drill, the research and patents of which were performed and filed by Los Alamos National Labs. Real shit. You can look those up. They are 100% real. It's not to say they ever got built, but they filed patents for them, and we have the technology. We had it then.
Yeah. But wouldn't we see the material they would have to remove?
Not if they are creating a river of magma. Think about it. They're not grinding. They're melting it. Yeah. And as they melt it, they're literally curing the inside of the tunnel. As they're boring it, the tunnel is complete. And even some of the drill bores that we have now, it's basically done. After the bore makes it all the way through, that thing is ready to put down track or lay asphalt, or it's a tunnel.
Huh.
So
I don't know enough how that works.
It's real. Dude, the boring company.
Yeah.
Tesla's boring company. They built the underground Hyperloop in Las Vegas with massive bores that just bored a fucking hole that they put a track on. This shit isn't exotic.
Right.
This is like pretty plain and simple. It's just, especially then, but even now, it's so advanced they don't want to talk about it. Anyways, Cheyenne Mountain, Raven Rock, Side R, Area 51, Andrews Air Force Base, the Pentagon, the Large Hadron Collider, the Maginot Line in France, the FEMA Mount Weather Facility, Fort Meade. At Fort Meade, the NSA has acres of server rooms underground for possibly 20 levels. That's what they think. Los Alamos National Labs, Camp David, First Iraq War, Bechtel, a civil engineering firm, built multiple sophisticated underground facilities in Saudi Arabia. In fact, Stormin' Norman, who was in charge of the operation, spent most of the war underground commanding the troops.
Wow.
It is also known that the Chinese have constructed 3,000 miles of underground tunnels to house their nuclear arsenal, and so does Iran. Most weapon creation and storage occurs underground. During the Cold War, there were an untold number of underground missile facilities scattered across the U.S., many of which can now be purchased since they're decommissioned. I've looked them up. There's a bunch in Nebraska, and they're kind of cheap.
Really?
For a whole decommissioned missile silo, a couple $100,000 ain't that bad.
Yeah.
You
played pretty cool game like hide and go seeking it or something.
Not opposed to it, dude. Known military industrial engineering firms associated with black projects are Morrison Knudsen, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, BAE Systems, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, Parsons, Brickenhoff, Hewitt, McDonnell Douglas, Black and Vetch, Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. Navy Seabees, who are known for underground and undersea construction, and then Robbins, who manufactures large-scale boring systems. At the time of his lectures, Phil claimed that 28% of the GDP was being spent on D.U.M.s. And again, like, look at what our government spends the money on. It's military.
20%?
28% of the GDP was being spent on deep underground military bases. The actual amount is impossible to determine, though, as these projects would surely fall under the purview of the black budget, the portion of the defense budget spent on classified programs, the details of which are never disclosed to the public. Mm-hmm. It's only in very top, secretive environments. It is also worth noting that of all of these wild claims, no one refuted him, no one debunked him, and of the wild claims and theories that are eviscerated on the internet, his story stands alone, really kind of because of his bona fides. Like he was who he said he is. He had proof to say he worked there. Like Bob Lazar didn't have the proof. This guy had literally had pay stubs. Huh. And dude, his father's records, like the shit that he took on his lecture tour, like real his dad was that person.
Right.
For me, like, this is another one where I don't give a fuck if half of this story is true. The 10% of it that is verifiably true is a fucking sick story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
even if we say he didn't get attacked by aliens, just like his dad's origin.
Well, let's not get carried away here, James.
But like, what this could also be is he got injured in an accident doing this work, and his brain constructed the trauma response of "I was attacked by aliens."
Right.
Like the portion of him being involved in projects like these. Totally provable.
Yeah.
But where it gets to like, did he get attacked by aliens?
Yeah.
I don't know. But this is real shit. And again, Valiant Thor before
Valiant
we totally
Thor.
Close out.
I completely
one of the things that his dad tells him before he dies is that he worked with an individual at the Pentagon who was a known Martian who is said to be 100 or something years old, multiple hundreds years old, and his name was Valiant Thor. There's a movie or a book called Stranger at the Pentagon that's about Valiant Thor. But he was a Martian who had been associated with many of the government's most nefarious operations, including the Philadelphia experiment. Phil's father worked with Valiant Thor on projects, including the Philadelphia experiment, and had pics of himself with that guy, Valiant Thor. And that was the only note there. That's somebody who you should fucking Google because it's hilarious. Valiant Thor. I think a metal band named their band Valiant Thor.
Okay.
But again, go ahead.
Well, I mean, let's like give this all the benefit of the doubt. Where are the other countries' aliens? Like, how come this is all seems to be so American? If there was aliens living underground all over the world, why, they wouldn't all be making bunkers and have the CIA and all this stuff? I mean, where is that?
Well, I mean, you will find across the globe, dating back to the beginning of recorded human history, people saying some shit about there being a hollow underworld, reptilians underground. This is like lore shit, not even UFO lore. And to be completely honest with you, I think the rest of the world is probably more open to the idea. Like every other country long ago disclosed to their people that their government was monitoring unidentified objects in the sky.
Yeah, that's
South America, Mexico, all over Europe. Like America's kind of the one that's had the problem. We're the one, our government is the one that hasn't been like, yeah, we're monitoring this shit until very recently. Until so many other countries said it that America had to say something because people in America were like, what the fuck? These countries are taking it seriously. Why?
Yeah.
But that to me also feeds the fuel that's because they're doing it.
Right.
That's why they don't want to talk about it at all, is because they're fucking doing it. And they don't want to even have to pretend like they're monitoring themselves, which they wouldn't be doing.
Oh, you guys got caught again? Huh.
But dude, Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed, those are real fucking places. Skunkworks, real shit.
Yeah.
Actual things, tangible things have been built. The money's going somewhere. Going somewhere.
Yeah. It's like what you said. I mean, even if you drop the alien stuff, just the amount of undisclosed money that's being dropped, that's being like poured into stuff like building animatronic aliens to scare people.
Yep.
It's pretty obscene.
It is.
And I the level to which that's going, we won't know for 50, 100 years or never.
Ever, yeah.
But it's pretty messed up.
It is.
And it's likely, there's at least, exactly.
Well, all of this shit, Benny, it's gotten so obnoxious that even the least obnoxious seems too obnoxious.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny that people are probably more willing to entertain the idea all of this shit is from extraterrestrial and you and I talking about the idea that it might be the government. That's what pisses people off now. You know what I mean? Like back then they didn't want to accept that humans weren't the special golden childs that we once thought we were. And now it's like, how dare you say the aliens aren't real? How dare you say the aliens aren't the reason that everybody's seeing this shit? I don't know. It's just funny how that turned around.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there's like that. I was actually talking to Mike, our buddy Mike Moshman, and who was on your show about this. He was talking about how all this stuff is going on, all those congressional hearings, and people on the internet are like, well, so what? Like, we don't really care if there's aliens, we still have
going to pay my bills
to work tomorrow. And
exactly.
Gas is still $3.50 a gallon and all that.
Yeah, you're lucky out there, buddy.
I think there is that element of, it would be really cool and fun if aliens were real. Like, there's that element of, I think, probably people in the government dealing with this or making it up or whatever, and also people in the like UFO lore community where, regardless of the truth, it's something you kind of want to believe in, or at least as a compelling story that kind of, it pulls you in and makes you want to know more. But when, sort of what it means, if it were to be true or anything, that is harder to tell. Like, it's almost the sort of mysterious aspect of it is the best part, I guess.
Well, yeah, and honestly, I feel like if we ever find out the truth, it's gonna suck.
Yeah,
like the mystery of not knowing leaves the the interpretations in the factors of like Limitless, right?
Yeah.
As soon as we know the real explanation for it,
Yeah.
it immediately loses a lot of the appeal right there.
Right.
And then, honestly, when we find out, if we ever found out the truth, it would probably be so stupid and petty and childish. Like, oh, we're doing all this to mine all the helium out of the ionosphere.
Yeah.
We wanted to make a really bright neon sign.
I mean, it's exactly
Cool.
like
Thanks, you. Super government.
it's exactly like the original Roswell story, where they found this thing and it was really weird, and there was a lot of stuff going on, and one thing led to another, and the story got out that it was a space alien. It was like alien spaceship, it was material never seen before, and the government was like, shit, this is our top secret weather balloon thing that we're going to beat the Russians with.
It was an alien.
Yeah, okay, run with it. Exactly.
Yeah, let's tell them that. It was an alien.
Exactly. And it's like, to some extent, probably so that's kind of thing is still going on. But yeah, that real story that it was just a weather balloon with some cameras on it or something.
Lame. That story's fucking lame. I want a cool story. And that's this is another part about all this shit. I love a story.
Yeah.
I love a good story. Even if that story it ultimately has a stupid punchline to it. But I just love a good story. And there's so many of these good stories of the known shit.
Right.
There are great fucking stories. To me, that's what's always drawn me to this shit. It's you get to learn a little bit about some crazy shit that happened in history, but it's also an entertaining story. I just want to be entertained. That's it.
Yeah. Bread and circuses, James.
Anyways, I think we solved aliens. We solved them. Benny, I want to thank you for coming on here again. And, you know, wow, this is a long clip. That really, I need to edit that. What we got to have you back on. And what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, well, I picked the last two.
Fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got a couple ideas. I think we might jump down the. I'll have to look on here. I don't know if we've done one on Skull and Bones. Would you be interested in doing one on Skull and Bones?
Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, that would be
Sick.
Great.
Yeah, we should definitely dive into that.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, we'll deal with that later. Benny Holmes, thank you for coming on. You've been a pleasure. We're out of here. Like and subscribe.
This
Benny, stay on. Benny, stay on.
Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. With your host, James Oliva. Executive producers, Clint G and James Oliva. That's obnoxious. Sound design, mix, and master by James Oliva. Literally no one cares. For more Totally Legitimate Business, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Totally Legitimate Business or add us on TikTok at TLB Pod. When will this end? Thank you for listening. Now get back to work. Move it along, buddy.